August Biniaz here, and you're listening to the Passive Investor Show.
And Ava Benesocky here, and you're listening to the Passive Investor Show.
The views and opinions provided on this show are for informational purposes only and should not be misinterpreted as an offer to buy or sell any securities or to make or consider any investment or course of action. For more information, please go to passiveinvestorshow.com. Hey PI listeners, this is John Fortes. I'm making it a point to speak to as many investors as possible. My goal is to position myself to be a blessing to my network through conversation. How could one be a blessing through conversation? The easy answer is by listening. A simple conversation can open many opportunities and doors. I always ask myself this: what do I have to lose by having one more conversation? Going back to high school, I've connected friends and family in my network to one another, even if it didn't benefit me. And I continue those same principles and practices. Why? Because it's the right thing to do. If I can't help you, I probably know someone or something that can probably solve your problem. I'd love for you to become a part of that network. Go to www.johnfortes.com, create your investor profile, and schedule a call. How can I best serve you through conversation? In the words of Clarence the Angel from It's a Wonderful Life, no man is a failure who has friends.
And now, the Passive Investor Show. Here's your host, John Fortes.
Welcome, PI listeners, to the Passive Investor Show. I'm the Passive Investor Consultant, John Fortes, your host of the only ranked podcast for passive investors in multifamily syndications and real estate funds. Our goal and purpose of this show is to be a resource to investors and help them master their passive investments by beating inflation 1% at a time. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the Passive Investor Show. I'm your host, John Fortes, and I got two amazing guests with me. I have Ava Benesocky and August Biniaz. Ava Benesocky and August Biniaz joined forces in 2019, realizing the pain points Canadian investors were facing in both of their fields of expertise. They founded CPI Capital. CPI Capital is a Canadian-based real estate investment firm in the business of discovering, acquiring, improving, and actively managing U.S. multifamily rental, value-add real estate assets. CPI specializes in identifying largely stabilized revenue-producing assets, which allows it to pay our investors regular distributions immediately after closing on the property. CPI enters into a strategic partnership with experienced active operators with local market experience in the high-growth regions in the United States. By leveraging its operators' partners' knowledge and expertise, CPI will continue to identify, underwrite such assets for the benefit of its investors who participate as limited partners. CPI is focused on ensuring thorough due diligence on every potential deal analyzed. Only deals that qualify under its rigorous criteria will be presented to investors. Investors are expected to benefit not only from the regular passive income distributions, but also the potential for above average returns on dispositions, which CPI deems forced appreciation due to its rigorous value add program. Welcome to the show, Ava and August. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us, John.
No, so I want one of you or both of you guys to basically explain how you got here. So what did you do in the past that has led you to your real estate investment firm?
Great, yeah. I mean, if I may,
Yes,
our backgrounds are both in real estate. I was in construction, development, real estate for the past 16 years. And same thing with Ava. She was a real estate agent for a long time. Actually, the great thing about our story and the inception of our company is that everything came about when we realized pain points that existed for investors here in Canada, in the large cities in Canada, Vancouver and Toronto, when it came to real estate investing or this concept of investing in real estate. A lot of times the message out there is invest in real estate, where real estate is a great investment, and 90% of the world's riches have become that way through investing in real estate and what have you. But when people here wanted to invest in real estate because of many different pain points that existed, such as real estate being very expensive here in Vancouver, the Canadian mortgage laws being very rigid, the point of entry being very high for people wanting to invest, and the thin line that exists between being a passive and an active investor, and also the low rent to value ratios where it deems most real estate investments in negative cash flows. This concept of passively investing in real estate and this business model of real estate private equity really made sense for the Canadian investor. And
Yeah, and if I could add to that, just being in the real estate industry for so long and dealing with so many incredible investors and realizing that they all wanted to scale their real estate portfolios, but there's just too much chaos that existed around that to be able to do so. So August and I put our minds together, realized the pain points that existed, and came across the beautiful US. Across the border, these incredible opportunities where people obviously pull together their capital. And obviously here in Canada, we brought those up. We decided to bring those opportunities to our fellow Canadians, where they received the above market returns, the cash flow, and the appreciation. So we really wanted to bring this incredible opportunity to our Canadians to push away those pain points that existed for real estate investors.
That sounds awesome. It sounds like you had a clientele that you guys already worked towards with real estate, and then you guys came together and just started working together on these syndications. Now, immediately, I'm going to ask, one, we are not tax professionals, we're not CPAs, but dealing with cross-border, international, how does that work on a tax basis for investors?
A great question, and it seems to be a very common question that comes up. Is an initial concern that we had when we noticed this concept of real estate private equity or multifamily or real estate syndicated investments. When we realized that in the U.S. On a conventional mortgage, putting down 30%, in some cases even 20%. Operators were able to cash flow on the assets, the multifamily assets they were purchasing. That was the initial surprise to us. And then they were able to bring on investors and also, provide investors with cash flow from day one and great appreciation when their asset is eventually sold. The first idea was how do we bring, initially ourselves first, but also how do we bring, create a fund and bring more investors to be able to buy these assets ourselves? And the first hurdle was taxation, that there was issues as double taxation. Obviously there's the IRS on the US side and you're taxed on the US side, and then there's CRA, a Canadian Revenue Agency, on the Canadian side. And how do you avoid that? So the first 6 months when we realized about this business model that exists in the US, the first 6 months went to educating ourselves about taxation, about the securities regulations across the borders for both countries, about raising capital, about the corporate structure. But tax was one of those first items. And the great news, and many people don't know this, even some sophisticated people that we deal with, there is actually a treaty between Canada and the US. There's actually a treaty between a lot of countries, but in particular, there's a treaty between Canada and the US. Canada does 80% of its trade with the US. Also, I believe Canada is its number one trading partner internationally. But there's a treaty in Canada and the US which allows for foreign tax credit and for relief from double taxation, as long as the corporate structures that are created for such investments, especially passive investments, are done in the right way, which then allows for the investors in a fund to be relieved from double taxation.
Nice. I got hit with that question from an investor in Canada one time. So to be honest, I really didn't know how to answer that because I never dealt with it. So no, that's pretty insightful. Thank you. I appreciate you. Now, when you both started working with passive investors, what was some of the obstacles you had to go towards educating investors? I know tax one that we already hit on, but what were some other things?
Yeah, of course. So one thing I'd like to touch on is the terminology between the US and Canada is quite different. So we really had to educate our Canadian investors because, of course, our assets are in the US. we had to educate them on the different terminology. For example, offering memorandum in the US is a deal presentation, but here in Canada, it's actually an exemption that you can use to raise capital. So we really wanted to get them familiarized with the different terminology. So we started our educational platform to really make it simple for an investor.
I think that was the impetus. The opaqueness of so much information that existed, the clutter that existed, especially with the terminology, so much confusion because words would have different meanings. Certain investors or people trying to starting out in active investing would hear about a certain process of raising capital in the U.S. 506C, 506B, or what an accredited investor is on the U.S. side, and they would just assume that was the same on this side because they heard a lawyer speaking it on the U.S. side. But in Canada, that's the different story. Not only we have national instruments as far as our security compliance, we also got provincial regulations. So every province dictates what the security compliance is per province. So depending on where you're raising capital. So and that was kind of the realizing that this issue that existed was the impetus for us to starting our own educational platform, which is currently YouTube, newsletters, and meetup groups and online coaching the one-on-one coaching we do for starting active investors. But that was a start because of so much confusion that existed.
Yeah, and to add to that, even with the tax implications, a K1 form is actually, there's no K1 form here in Canada. It's actually called the T5013 slip. So we wanted to really hold the hand of the investor and have to walk them through each step so that they could really understand everything from start to finish.
And it's more than that. I mean, it's not only the terminology, not only taxation, even the corporate structure. For example, in the US, a lot of time starting out investors or active investors, they hear about the term in the US LLC, limited liability corporation. And that's a great entity to buy your asset in and what have you. Well, we don't have an LLC in Canada. We have a corporation, which is in the US you guys call it C Corp. We do also have other entities such as a limited partnership, which in the US you also have a limited partnership. But we don't have this hybrid LLC, which allows for corporate tax and allows for limited liabilities that exist. So that's we could talk about all day about the terminology and different regulations that exist, but that's a bit of background about that.
Yeah, so I want to go and rewind back to times like, how did you start finding sponsors to start working with? I know you have a rigorous process of, that's part of your criteria, and that with any real estate investment firm, I think that's the foundation of their firm, because it decides on how we're gonna pick and choose with deals, but also when we're picking choosing deals, we're picking choosing sponsors. How do you connect with sponsors?
Yeah, and if I may take a step back, initially it wasn't the CPI's plan initially was to be the operator. That's the business model that we were following, and we still have aspirations to be the operator for the deals. But starting out and realizing how much time it was being spent on educating our investors, cultivating and nurturing relationship for investors, also looking at deals and underwriting deals, we early on realized that it might make more sense for us to partner with active operators in regions that we feel strongly about. And there was, there are certain bonuses and positive that comes out of that as well, is that we don't have to be in a certain regions and have the infrastructure needed. For example, there are other groups in Canada that do similar business model, and they're very focused in a certain region. And because of, they have 40, 50, 100 employees, they have to buy assets, even though if the timing might not be right, if their focus is solely on Arizona, for example. And, Arizona just happens to be a very great place for the last 10 years. But, our business model allows us to be dynamic and pivot if a market does slow down. It's not like that we have employees and asset managers in a certain regions. We've partnered with multiple regional asset managers and operators. So if a certain market slows down, we can pivot and look at other markets. So it initially came from just realizing about the time that it went in, and also being able to provide our investors with great opportunities. again, it goes back to this kind of fundamental idea. If we had infrastructure in one region, we will only get deals from that area. But with the partnerships that we have with multiple operators in multiple regions, we can sit back, wait for the operators to bring us deals, obviously vet the right operators in the regions we want to be in, and sit back, wait for them to bring us deals, and then cherry pick the best deals for our investors, and then to create the fund of fund structure to bring our Canadian investors for those deals that tick off all the boxes.
Exactly, and show our Canadian investors the strong relationship that we have with these powerhouse active operators that have great track record. They've proven time and time again that they can perform and have very happy investors. So it's kind of the best of both worlds.
Exactly.
Thank you for stopping by the show. It was really great to have this conversation. We really enjoyed it.
Thank you, John. We really appreciate you.
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you this special message.
Hey, everyone. If you manage your own rental properties, aren't you looking for a more sufficient way to streamline your to-do list and make the leasing process easier? Apartments.com lets you list your units, screen and receive applications, create leases, collect rent, and track maintenance and expenses, all on the #1 rental network for free. That's right, for free. Apartments.com isn't just for apartments. 29 million monthly visitors visit the site for all types of listings, like single-family homes, duplexes, condos, and townhomes. Renters view these specific listings over 100 million times per month. This valuable exposure and a robust suite of resources are available to you as a landlord for free. And it's all online, so you can access this information anywhere at any time. If you're ready to find the perfect tenant, get started today by listing your units on the #1 rental network. Go to apartments.com/John Fortes. That's apartments.com/John Fortes. Why not take advantage of the free tools right at our fingertips? Go to apartments.com/John Fortes. It's free. All right, so we talked about how you both got into this. We also hit on what you look for in sponsors, and we also hit on taxes. What is the criteria you're looking for with passive investors?
Criteria for passive investors. I mean, it goes back to the exemption we're currently using. Initially starting out, the idea was to democratize real estate investing. It was allow for everyday people to use this incredible vehicle of real estate to build wealth. But unfortunately, when we got involved, we realized that the system is created for the little guy to fail. And these opportunities are very streamlined and easy for accredited investors. These are accredited investors are people that are doing financially pretty well, so well that the Securities Commission, both in Canada and the US, feels like if they lose money, that it's not going to be a big deal for them. So they actually limit everyday people to invest in these investments. So, starting out wanting to help everyday person, realizing that the system is built not to allow them to participate. And currently our investment opportunities are for accredited investors. So we use the accredited investor exemption in the US known as the 506C. And bring on investors. Now, as far as the investor, it was very broad. Initially, it was all accredited investors, but as talking to our advisors and mentors, we realized that we need to be very focused. What is the avatar? Tell me exactly who is your investor. How old is the person? Man or woman, what do they do for a living? What is their mindset? Everything. Create that person, that individual, that investor, and build from there. So that's kind of the approach we took.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Now, I'm an investor and I'm coming through to CPI. What am I going to expect as the onboarding process for you guys?
Okay, right on. So when somebody signs up, they submit a form and a landing page to invest with us, and right away they're prompted to get on a call with me. I like to do a Zoom call. I like to do a face-to-face. So essentially we jump on a Zoom call, and I usually talk about the active opportunities that we have and a little bit of obviously get to know the investor. And then what happens is they're onboarded onto our investor portal that we have set up. So it's super streamlined process. Everything is in the investor portal, down to checking out the details of the active deals that we have, down to the subscription agreements, which is the legal documents that they have to, similar to a PPM, if you will. Everything's right on the portal. Download from a click of a button, and when they're ready to invest with CPI, they get accredited right on our portal through our exempt market dealer. So we actually have partnered with an exempt market dealer who is licensed through the Securities Commission of Canada, and they do the accreditation process. And once the investor is accredited, they are then kind of opened up to be able to invest in the current offering that we have. They can transfer the funds right on the portal, subscription, the legal documents are signed right on the portal, and we like to stay very organized. So it's kind of a one-stop shop for investors. They even get to get informed of monthly distributions on their portal, and it gets the monthly distributions get put right in their bank account. So they're building wealth while they sleep. And that's the beauty of these types of investments.
Yeah, and just for me to add a few, Adam. So the investors that do sign our initial form and get on a call with our CEO, so it's very rare to be able to do that, but that's a service we provide here. So they're put onto our investor portal prior to making an investment. They're already reaping the benefits of being on the portal, being able to see future investments, being first to be able to see the future investment, correct, going through the accreditation process before we have a deal if they're never invested with us. So the process is very streamlined. When the deal comes in, they literally click a couple buttons, transfer funds. All investments are made in US dollars. Canadian investors are asked to open a Canadian bank US account if they don't have one already. Most people already do. Their distributions are all also in US dollars, which get just deposited directly into their Canadian US bank account. And just to add a bit more about this nurture and onboarding process is the fact that when investors do sign up with us, they actually get onboarded. Also, they don't really get onboarded, but they get added to our database, which then they receive our monthly newsletter. They receive information about events that we're hosting, and they get other great content about also our YouTube show and the expert guests that we've had on.
Yeah, just try to bring as much value as possible.
Exactly.
To the investors.
That's awesome. Who are you guys currently using for your investor portal?
We love our HubSpots.
No, Investor Portal actually is
Investor Portal. Sorry.
Investor Portal is so our CRM is HubSpot that Ava mentioned. Our Investor Portal is customized for our company through our EMD. So that's so it's a service that our EMD, which in the US you guys are calling it broker dealers, I believe they're called. So our EMD, our broker dealer, has the main investor portal, but then has customized our own investor portal, which is overseen by our EMD, which the accreditation process has to go through the EMD. Another thing about the difference between Canada and the US, we don't have third-party companies which conduct the accreditation process, where in the US you guys do have that. Here in Canada, the process to proof accreditation is done through an EMD, a dealing rep, or a certified a certified person like a lawyer or CPA who can provide a letter saying that the person is accredited.
Which makes sense why you would, have your investor portal set up the way you have it. No, that makes total sense. I love asking that because as we talk about investing, other little small sponsors or startups are understanding the process of how do we build this firm to get it to the levels where we want to get it to. So that is the question. That was the reason why we're asking who are you using for a portal, who are you using for a CRM. That was actually one of my next questions. Ava, you beat me. You jumped the gun, because the question is, what are the different ways you are communicating with investors?
Yeah, exactly. So we send out our monthly newsletters. We also send out when we have our guest speakers on. So we send out an email a month as well with links to each guest speaker that we brought on to our YouTube show. We bring on 2 guest speakers a week, actually. So we try to, I know our investors learn a lot from tuning in on those. We're huge on LinkedIn as well. We definitely do a lot of promotional things on LinkedIn to keep our investors engaged. So a lot of them follow us on LinkedIn as well. August, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, because we're not a large fund, a lot of Canadian investors are used to REITs and these large funds, which an average payout 4 to 5% gross returns. The deals that we have are syndicated investments. So there are deal specific funds, and the investors would bring on. So that process of communication that we have with investors is very up close and personal. It's text messages, messaging, WhatsApp, email, phone calls. Is very. It's not like we know people. We know our investors' first name, last name. We know everything about them. Is a very close. It's really a friendship. They've been invited to come to our home. Even some been invited to my birthday coming up here soon. So it's a very close. We're hoping to keep it as such, moving on. But obviously, we want to scale our company and eventually have thousands of investors. But currently, is a very hands-on, up close and personal relationship. Obviously, we're using state of art CRMs and our intake funnel and our pipelines are all very modern and a lot of technology involved. But it's a very up close and personal relationship. And we pursue that from day one. In our kind of list of items that we want to talk about is we want to talk to an investor about some personal items, and we want to take note of that. If someone says, "Hey, it's it was my kid's graduation last month, and my kid graduated from X university," we want to have a note of that, and next time congratulate them or send them the postcard. So it's a very personal relationship, because at the end of the day, in this business of private equity, where there's investors and the deal, your investors are the backbone of your business. So if you're not taking care of them, you don't have any hope of being in a business long term. So
well said.
No, I love that. With our fund, as we closed the first raise, we were looking at different care packages to send our first round of investors. So it's all little things like that with thank you notes and all of that. So I love the way you just kind of ran through that. Now, I want to ask, what is the impact your investments and opportunities had on your passive investors? Have you had any stories shared from personal LPs from your deals?
I think the best story that I can say is one of our first investors. It was pretty much my aunt, is my mom's best friend.
Yes.
They've been best friends for 20 years. She comes to my mom's home every Thursday, and they have a gathering. She's been an active real estate investor, an agent, and an active real estate investor, and for well over 25 years. A very astute businesswoman, and definitely accredited. But what it was is the ability to still invest in real estate and be able to be passive, and that's 100% passive. It was a new concept for her.
Yeah.
It was a new idea for her, and that's what we were really excited about. And not only that, is also holding the feet of the syndicator, operator, a general partner to the fire to ensure that a deal makes sense. Because as operators, we only get compensated relative to the performance of the asset, relative to our performance. So, and I loved that's why I fell in love with this business, because a real estate agent comes, does their job. It doesn't matter if you end up making money on a deal or not. They get their payment, or advisors, same kind of thing. But in this business of real estate private equity or syndicated real estate investments, the operator, the sponsor, gets paid relative to how well the deal does. And there's also kind of bonuses within the deal that if a certain waterfall is hit, if certain numbers are hit, that the operator would get paid more. So it's like an incentive for the operator to do well and continue to grow a business. So that was a little backstory about one of our investors, who also very close to him. And it also keeps us very focused to make sure that, hey, we're partnering with the right operator. Hey, this deal might look good. You know what? Let's take extra time and go through the underwriting. If you have to fly down and look at the asset, let's do that. Because these people who are investing are our friends, are our family, our name, our reputation, and our future is on the line to ensure that it's the right investment for our partners and ourselves.
Well said. Well said. I really love that. I really love that. Now, August, Ava, we're winding down the show. what's one piece of advice you have for the PI listeners?
Start your passive investing journey today. Don't wait, because there's such great opportunities that exist out there, and get that money working for you.
Absolutely. I love the fact that we're all trying to do things with our lives and there's not enough time. So how do we offset or mitigate that time? Maybe investing in a firm like you guys will help free up my time to be able to go, instead of being an active investor, to be more active in my family, my work, my hobbies. So I love that you touched on that. How can we stay in touch with you guys?
Yeah, you can stay in touch with us. Our website, cpicapital.ca. You can check out our YouTube show, Canadian Passive Investing Academy. You can find Ava and I on LinkedIn. Again, CPI Capital, or Ava Benesocky on LinkedIn. Easy to find,
Just a phone call away.
Awesome. Now, we're going to close the show with my favorite question. I love this question. CPI Capital. What is the meaning behind the company name?
Oh, of course. So CPI actually stands for Canadian Passive Investing. So we're in Vancouver, Canada, and we're Canadians at heart, even though we are expanding into the US investors and so forth, but Canadian Passive Investing is what it stands for.
Ava and August, don't forget to download your free copy of the investment tracker. It allows you to track up to 5 investments, compare sponsors, markets, and most importantly, projected versus actual returns. To get your copy, go to www.projectedreturns.com. PI listeners, thank you for listening. As always, we hope this was the best resource for your investment strategy, but also the best use of your time. Remember, if this episode helps you, you can help us by leaving a review on iTunes. I hope you feel compelled enough to share it with someone you think this would resonate with as well. As much as it pains us to leave you, but you know what time it is. Time to go put this into practice. Till the next time we meet, happy investing. PI listeners, I'm grateful for your time and I appreciate you for listening. It would mean the world to me if you went to iTunes and left a rating and written review. Let me know how you feel about the show. It really makes a big difference with getting the podcast out there. Don't forget about our Facebook group, where all of our guests are members of. I'll be there to answer any of your questions, or even questions you might have for future guests. Subscribe so you can get the latest episodes and our fan favorite quick hitters. Finally, I want to keep you updated, so head over to johnfortes.com and sign up for the newsletter. If you're interested in partnering with me, sign up on the contact page so you can talk to me directly. I look forward to connecting with you. Happy investing.